and I need to be out of this, and I need to be doing something else, and so essentially I walked away from the house. We had bought a house together, and I just said, take it, it's yours. I signed a quitclaim deed, walked out. I felt I was getting away pretty cheap, actually, based on all the stuff that had gone on. And sometime shortly after that, Betty and I sort of started going out a little bit, and then next thing, you bought a house.
Yeah.
Betty bought a house in West LA, and we sort of ended up together.
Yeah.
And so from that point on, but it was interesting because it was a real easy we adapted really easily to each other because I think I'd been studying her for a long time, and she said it was, you know, like she knew.
Well, you know, the woman I'd been with was so opposite to everything I believed in and everything that I thought, you know, and politically, and all she was concerned about was money, 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 you know.
Yeah, she's a millionaire now, so
yeah, well, that was what was important in her life. So, and we fought all the time because you know, she would say, well, don't get me anything for Christmas because, or don't get me this or that because it would cost too much. You know, everything was about money.
Sort of like, I don't want to have to buy you something.
I don't want to have to buy you anything, so let's not give each other any gifts for Christmas. It was crazy, absolutely crazy. And then when I ran into Rachel, you know, here we think alike. You know, we are so much alike. You know, all of our beliefs are the same. So we got along so easily. Carol and I fought like cat and dog over everything, but Rachel and I didn't, well, except for that first day.
Well, it wasn't the first day, but you know, I think that for two people to get along in a relationship and for it to be good long term, you have to be friends. Okay, the person I had lived with before, we were not friends. We had a lot of interests in common. You know, we liked going to football games together. We liked going to plays, concerts, all that kind of stuff. But in terms of friendship, we weren't really friends. And so afterwards, we didn't remain friends. If you're in a relationship with somebody where you are a friend, you will be a friend later. I mean, you'll go through a period of healing and getting past the hurt and all of that. But then you could be friends again. And I think that if there's any one thing that makes a relationship work, it's having common values. Yeah. The values are so important. They are. Values and ethics, because you can't live in the same house and have your life intertwined with somebody who is so ethically different than you are, or believes things that are so different than you, because you're going to feel like it's wrong. I mean, you know, if they're taking money out of a till or whatever it is, if it's not something that fits your values, it won't work.
No, absolutely, it did not work with Carol.
Well, and with my former partner, it wasn't. Again, it was money. I mean, her primary thing was money, and I could care less about money. I mean, money always comes when I need it, you know. So I don't worry about it. I don't feel like I have to hoard it or figure out how I'm going to beat somebody else out of it or any of that kind of stuff. And so the values, the basic values, and what you believe about life and how you treat people and how you want to be treated are really critical.
I agree.
Yeah.
What about that first night? You guys had a fight?
No. It wasn't.
This was after we had just moved into the new house.
Yeah, we were together, and then.
And Rachel, as I said, she has a temper, a real temper.
Yeah.
And so she had not. Yeah. She had not really learned to live with her temper.
Well, I'd been working on trying to.
Right, and I had gone through years of therapy where I was training myself to be able to speak up for myself and get angry, you know, and be able to express it. So the day that we got angry, I forget what we were fighting about. I can't remember.
It wasn't important. It never is.
It wasn't important. But she stormed out of the house.
Yeah, I just said, I'm not going to do this.
I'm not going to do this. And so then I got furious, and I didn't know what to do with my anger, so I grabbed a coat hanger and I went in the bathroom and I just pounded against the wall. And
the door, it was the back of the door.
The back of the door. And It scarred the door.
It hurt the door a
It
lot.
hurt the door.
Big lines on the door. Yeah.
But
Actually, I left them there to remind me. It was a good reminder.
Yeah,
it was a good reminder.
It was a good reminder for both of us, and so that's how we communicated at the first.
Well, yeah, we worked it out. We figured out how to do it. And sort of out of that, too, came some house rules that have stood the time, which is you never go to bed angry. You work it out no matter how long it takes. If you have to be up all night, and we've done that, be up all night long before you go to bed, you have to have talked it out and worked it out. And that's another good rule, I think. It works for us. Are you out of tape?
No, but before the next question, I want to move the camera angle a little bit.
Yeah, because there's like a
You guys don't
shadow.
need to move.
That's,
I'm
do you
just
want the?
gonna
Oh, you don't want the shadow out of there? Is okay.
The shot will be okay if I come at it from this angle. So I'm just gonna move this way.
Is it coming from the light up on top?
Yeah.
It's probably, yeah, this time of day the light comes in from the,
Start recording, but then we're gonna adjust stuff. So don't pay attention to us.
Okay, so hold on. Is that how's the lighting looking, Sarah? That's good. I feel like it needs to be brighter.
We're getting some really harsh whites.
Back it up. Well, maybe that one needs to be backed up. What about now?
Better?
Is that just because they're wearing a light shirt?
No.
Okay. Do we need a white balance again, or is it cool? Okay.
I don't want it to look like they're on the other end of the couch, so I'm kind of trying to just see.
that or what?
That you guys are on the.
Oh, I don't want people to see that you're on the opposite side of the couch now, so I'm trying to frame it so that it.
So you can't tell.
So it looks
Hmm.
normal.
Okay.
So maybe what it was like socially, and then the work
Over here,
stuff.
Yeah.
Being together in 71, you mean?
Sorry. Okay. I'm coming over here.
Well,
Well,
there were some interesting things that happened when we were first together, actually, because you had started, shortly after we were together, you started the job in Long Beach. And,
yeah.
and Betty had this secretary who was really nosy. And she would call the house. Betty had a standing appointment. She'd go get her hair done once a week, and the secretary knew that. But she would always call. She would call the house. I'd answer the phone if I was still there. No, she's not here. She'll be in the office at such and such a time. So she starts talking to your bookkeeper
Yeah.
and saying, you know what, Betty lives with a woman, I think. So there was that kind of
God.
stuff. I don't think you ever paid much attention to it,
No,
but
I didn't. Well, even before that, we'll have to tell you about one of our friends who lives up here now, who at the time lived in Topanga Canyon with her lesbian lover, and she used
Oh.
to. They had a little sports car, so it had no top on it or anything. They would drive up in front, and they have top secret clearances. They would drive up in front of the security police.
well,
in front of the
building, the guys are right
building.
there, the police
guys are right there, and then kiss each other goodbye, and then she'd walk in and sign her security clearance
to come in, yeah.
come in.
That was Rosie.
That was
She
Rosie,
She's so nuts.
and she is a real character. Anyhow, she lives here with us in
Los Osos.
Los Osos at the present time. But that's how crazy some of our friends were. We have a lot of crazy friends up here
Back,
in the olden days.
yeah, back to the work question. It was interesting in aerospace because while everybody had clearances, and while the head of security, particularly at the System Development Corporation, was particularly interested in males who were gay, there were all these women who were sort of connecting and making, doing this networking. And I don't know whether we were just flying under the radar or what it was, but he didn't seem to pay any attention to that.
How could they not?
Well, they didn't know what the women were doing. We'd go out and drink and stuff, but they didn't get as concerned about that. I mean, his thing was the men. He was always the men.
Right.
I think that they don't, I think at that time they didn't think about women being gay. I think it was more, they were looking for the gay males. And I remember when Duke left, when he quit, Neil Bullington said to him, "I thought you and Rachel were going to get married." and Duke said, "Well, it didn't work out. We're good friends." Well, he was gay. Duke was gay. He and I hung out together for years. And this guy...
He still calls us from,
Yeah.
he lives down in Hemet now.
But this guy that was head of security, I mean, it was sort of like, it never occurred to him that Duke was gay because he and I were running around together all the time. And I think they just weren't as focused on women at that time. Unlike the females in the military, where, I mean, from the get-go, they were trying to get them out and that kind of stuff. But it was just it was a strange kind of thing. But there were so many of us. And the other thing is that I think, for me, I decided early on, and I know that they were after a lot of the guys, and they got some of the guys out, okay? I decided early on that if they came after me for being gay, I would fight them. Because I never considered myself any more of a security risk than anybody else. Because, truth be known, anybody can be blackmailed. If somebody held a gun to Betty's head and said, "You have to do this or I'm going to blow her brains out," you can bet your sweet life I'm going to do it. And I think anybody else would do that with a partner or whatever. So, from that standpoint, it's a level playing field.
Right.
And just because you're gay doesn't make it any more of a risk, as far as I'm concerned. Never has been, never would be. In fact, in that kind of a situation, if somebody said to me, "I'm going to report you," I'd say, "Let me dial a number for you." Because that just doesn't play for me. It never did. So, I mean, it was sort of a non-issue for me. If it had become an issue, then I would have fought it, and I knew that from the early days. And it just never came up.
And for you, Betty, was it the same being out at your workplaces? Because you worked a variety of jobs.
Yeah, well, I was not out, so I could not be out. Well, I don't know, I suppose after we had been at Family Service of Long Beach for a longer period of time, then it might have been more possible. But it really wasn't possible in the beginning for me there. I had a different kind of job, and the bookkeeper there, who it turns out was gay, and outed, or I don't know whether you could say she outed other people, but she certainly made them aware of her gayness. Anyhow, it was a really good job. I loved my job there, and I think I brought in a lot of money for the. When I first went there, they had a budget of like $169,000 a year or something, and they were $25,000 in debt. Well, I knew how to write grants, and so I started writing grants because I'd written them when I was in my former job, and so and it was a time when you could get all kinds of money out of grants. So we started a drug control program, and we had offices out in the various parks and neighborhoods, and small little 2 or 3 people who were working in this park or that park, and drug people who were using drugs could come to them and get help, and that was a big money raiser for us. We had all kinds of federal and state grants and all kinds. Anyhow, when we ended up, we had over $1 million in support, federal support for the agency. And well, we had United Way support, a certain amount, and city support. The city of Long Beach supported us. The city of Paramount, was it Paramount?
Mm-hmm.
And we had an office. We built a new office. Had a new office in Paramount. Then we had a second office in Long Beach that we started, on the other side of Long Beach near. So it worked really well, and it was very good for the agency, and it was very good for me. We had all kinds of we had a volunteer program. The volunteers would come in, and they were, you know, well-known people in the community, and they would come in and volunteer their services there, so that we could have people come into the agency without having to pay anything. They served as volunteer to greet them and get the physical data about them and get them entered into our programs. So here I have all these wealthy volunteers to work with. And, you know, it just worked out fine. It was beautiful. Anyhow, so that's, and we started a child abuse prevention program at Cedar House as one of the programs that we started. And it was a great job. It was just a great job. And turns out that my male counterpart, the social worker who was in charge of in the Long Beach office, was gay, and other people in the agency were gay, and you know, so they're everywhere.
They?
They are. We are everywhere.
We are everywhere. There you go.
And so I worked there until I retired, and did I retire? In
About 1980. 80 or 81.
Was it that early?
Mm-hmm.
About
Okay, well, I think we're gonna move
1980.
angles, right? So,
We're gonna change angles and change tape.
okay.
So,
Almost stopped.
so I don't want this angle.
Yeah, that's good. Wait, 1, 2, 3. Back that. Oops. Am I getting you? Okay. Yeah, that's better. That's nice.
I really like this.
Yeah, me too. That looks really good.
Okay.
Looks really good. No, come stay. You can stay here. You can stay here.
Let's take.
Huh?
Hmm?
Are you coming here? Yeah,
Come.
that looks really good. It's a nice angle.
All right.
All right, so finish with the retiring story. That's where you were at. Was talking about
Yeah,
retiring.
well, before I do that, I want to tell you how I got interested in photography. Anyhow,
Why don't you stay on track and
well,
finish the story, and
I'm
then go to
sorry. I'm
go
sorry.
to photography
No,
when you
this-
retire.
All right. Well, actually, that is when I got into photography, for sure. So I retired in
80 or
80
81,
or
something.
81, and I didn't know what to do with myself. So I had been interested in photography ever since Marty Gilbert, who was a guy who worked with us at SDC, had given me my program. I was a programmer then by that time at SCC, and my program was on hold, and so I couldn't leave the building. I just could not take the time to do anything like go out and look for a camera to buy. But I needed a camera because I was going to go to Italy and see my husband's grave, Ross's grave, and so Marty Gilbert went out and got me a camera, and fortunately got me a good enough one that I could take pictures in Italy and pictures inside buildings, and Italy is such a gorgeous, beautiful place with so many things to take pictures of. It's unbelievable. And so after I retired, then I decided, oh, I'm going to go study photography. So I went to Golden West or Golden State?
Golden West.
Golden West College down in Huntington Beach, and I studied photography. Black and white the first year, and then color. And I love taking pictures in black and white, but I was addicted to color the minute I started taking pictures in color. So I became a color photographer, and that's how come I ended up with a book published that shows how beautiful this area is. And I have all kinds of pictures I could show you of nudes in black and white.
Of what?
Nudes.
Okay.
Women that I...
Women.
Yeah.
Oh, nude women.
Well, no, not just women, men and women. Nude men and women that I shot.
Together?
No, not together. Anyhow, And-
Can you scooch your boot forward like 1 inch this way forward? Right? Okay, perfect.
Better.
As long as that's not going to be long as you. That's great.
Do you feel comfortable though? Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Probably not for very long. We'll switch it up at different angles soon.
I'll show you some of the pictures that I
No,
have.
no, it's never mind.
Well, anyhow, I have tons of pictures. Well, you were here, weren't you, when I showed all the pictures out
Oh,
in
yeah.
the, so you've already seen them. Well, okay.
Not the news.
I
Yeah,
didn't.
where
I
are the
didn't get.
nudes?
There were nudes in there, weren't there? In the greenhouse. I'll have to show you before you leave. Anyhow,
They're
so-
too young.
So that's what I retired to, was a life of photography. And then, of course, we always had been traveling in our motorhome. And then the minute I saw this area, it's so gorgeous and everything. And